listened to a short podcast on the way here. I just Googled organic farmer podcast, and there was this guy in Britain, and he was talking about, like, it was spiritual. He was talking about the soil is alive.
Yeah.
And the microbes and the organisms in the soil.
Yep.
And I want to get into that.
Sure. Yeah.
He was talking, is it hummus or humus?
Humus is what we always said. Yeah. Some people say hummus, but yeah. Humus is basically just organic matter, in the soil.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Chris.
Matt Fry. You run Fry Farm. This is the first time I've been here. This is a beautiful place.
Yep. You've been purchasing our produce for quite a while. Was it maybe 2 years now?
No.
Maybe even longer.
Probably 7 years.
Oh, was that right? Wow.
We started going to the farmer's market when our first daughter was born, and she just turned 8.
Oh, wow.
And we started going, we didn't do the produce at first. We went for those big cinnamon rolls.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we would go and have breakfast. They're much smaller now.
Yeah.
Like the opposite of inflation.
Deflation.
Yeah, cinnamon roll deflation.
Yeah.
And then the folks we get our coffee from.
That's right, Java Genesis. Yep.
Java Genesis. Juanice recommended that we start buying boxes. I said, we said, there's so many farmers here. How do you select a farmer? And she said, we like Fry Farm because you can pre-order a box and they have it there ready for you, and they have organic eggs, and so we took her advice and started buying from you, and now that sort of determines what I eat for the week, because I'll determine what I'm going to cook by what fresh vegetables I can
in the
get.
box. Yeah, and kind of forces you to try some new things too. Is one of the things that people really like about it. You might have something you haven't tried before in there, and you have to look up a recipe and try something new.
And some stuff that I didn't think I liked before, like eggplant. Yeah. And I just look up a recipe or ask you for a recipe. Most of the stuff I cook, I just ask you, and years ago, and that's how I still cook it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, how big's the farm?
The farm is 12 and a half acres. Now, as far as cultivated beds, not including all the fruit trees, and then we have a wooded area where we grow mushrooms. But actually, cultivated areas, it's only about somewhere between 3.5 to 4 acres of actual cultivated growing space where we're, seeding and planting plants. But we do have a lot of fruit trees, figs, pears, persimmons, blueberries, things of that nature. And we also have laying hens. We have about between 200 and 300 laying hens in the back of the property, and so that takes up some space as well. So, yeah.
How many people does it take to run a farm of this size?
Well, it takes more than we have. But right now we have roughly, including me and my parents who do help on the farm as well, but and they own the farm. But I think there's 7 people right now that are doing it. And we do have some family members that help do some markets and things like that. But yeah, right now it's about 7 people. But like I said, we're always looking for more help. So, it'd be nice if we had 10 or 12 people out here. I think we could run a little smoother, keep the weeds down, and keep everything planted. So.
All right, you hear that, folks? You need a job?
Yes.
Bethlehem, Georgia.
Email me.
Fry Farm. Matt, what is organic farming?
So organic farming is what they call is more of an unconventional way, which is funny because it's actually, before we had chemicals, it was actually more conventional to grow organically, but it's basically just growing with the environment in mind, not using synthetic pesticides, not using chemical fertilizers that are petroleum based, not using genetically modified seed, which we can go into later. There's a large list of guidelines, and the USDA actually sets forth the organic protocol. And you can grow organically without getting organic certified through the USDA because it's quite difficult and can be very expensive, and it's geared more towards larger operations. But you can just grow organically, follow their protocol, But you can also, there's other certifications. We have a certification called C&G, which is Certified Naturally Grown, which is the exact same guidelines as the USDA organic program. And we do get inspected, but it's a private certification program. So it's a lot cheaper for us since we're not a huge operation. But it's basically just, more environmentally friendly. It focuses on soil health, pollinator health. We're not spraying pesticides. It's killing all our, the good bugs. Because when you spray pesticides, you're killing good bugs, you're killing pollinators, and you're killing the bad bugs too. So that's kind of what it is in a nutshell. But, it gets a lot more complicated, and there's a bunch of different ways to grow organically. You can completely not use any pesticides at all, no chemical or no fertilizers at all, and just rely on the soil. Put leaf litter down for your organic matter, or there is some products that you can use that will kill bugs, but it's organic. There's some organic pyrethrins, there's neem oil, there's BT, and those are all allowed under the organic practices, and they're much, much, much safer than synthetic pesticides. But there's just a whole different, lots of ways to grow organically, but that's kind of basically what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot
to unpack there.
There's a lot to unpack. You mentioned genetically modified seeds.
Mm-hmm.
What are those, and is that similar to GMOs?
It is the same thing. So it's basically plants that were grown in a lab. I don't know the number right now. I think there's somewhere around only about 6 or 7 plants that are approved to grow that are GMO, genetically modified. I think there's corn, wheat, soybeans. There's some others that they've approved. But basically, they engineer these seeds in a lab, or these plants in a lab, and the seeds, of course. But they inject genes in them, which make them resistant to certain things, like the GMO corn is resistant to pests like the corn earworm because they actually have BT in their genes, and so when the worms go to feed on the corn, it kills them. And then you got soybeans, which are Roundup ready soybeans, or cotton too, and so there's actually glyphosate, which is Roundup, injected into the genes of these soybean plants. So when you go, instead of having to weed with a hoe like we do, you just go over it with an airplane or a tractor with a sprayer and just hose it down with Roundup. And it does not kill the soybeans, it does not kill the cotton, but it does kill all the weeds, which sounds great. It just sounds, it sounds wonderful, but there's a lot of bad side effects with that, which you can imagine, which obviously glyphosate's in the news all the time with, some possible cancer-causing issues with that.
Roundup too.
Yeah, exactly, which is the same thing. Roundup is glyphosate, but there's a bunch of different generic brands of glyphosate, but Roundup's the popular one. They have they're owned by Bayer, and then you go in, the Monsanto stuff, which I don't think they're called. I think they changed their name, but they used to own Roundup. So goes into all that stuff, getting in the weeds with that. No pun intended.
Good one. How does organic farming help the environment?
Well, like I said, not using the synthetic pesticides. Most of the synthetic pesticides have a residual, so when you spray it on, say you're spraying it on your tomato plant because you got bugs on it, it might have a 30-day residual. So any bee that comes up there to feed on it, which are very important, we need to protect the bees, or any pollinator, it'll kill it for a 30-day period, and so it remains in the environment, so it's not great for all our good bugs that we want to keep alive and all our pollinators. So that's part of it. And also organic farming is more friendly to the soil, which is really important. The soil is alive. We chatted a little bit before we started about that, but there's all kinds of beneficial bacteria in the soil that will be killed if you're spraying chemicals on it. And so it's very friendly to the environment that way. And it's just more geared towards kind of protecting all the good stuff. And even though you might have some of the bad stuff, bad bugs and pests that come along with it, but it just is much more environmentally friendly. So yeah.
You've mentioned soil several times, and you just said something that's fascinating.
Yeah.
The soil is alive.
It is, yeah.
How is it alive?
So the soil has all kinds of stuff, and there's bacteria. I mean, it's just full of fungi, which we call mycelium.
Also, you've got a friend.
You've got a friend of one of those good bugs or bad bugs?
I think it's a good bug. What do you think?
We'll let him pass.
All right.
But yeah, so there's the soil is made up all kinds of microbes and fungi, and it's just constantly alive, and the plants use that to uptake nutrients. And so it's very important to, even just tilling it kills those things. So it's very important to kind of be careful. We're careful about when we're tilling, things like that. But you have to remember the soil's alive and you want it to stay alive. And so when you're hosing it down with chemicals, you're killing a lot of that stuff, and it's just horrible for the soil. And then you leave behind bad soil, and then it causes erosion. Plants, can't grow on it as well over time, and it's just not a good thing to kill all your living particles in the soil.
Would you say that most of the soil in the United States is pretty contaminated?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. I mean, I guess most of the soil that's being used for agriculture probably is.
Yards too.
Yards too, of course. Yeah, we're spreading chemical fertilizers constantly and herbicides on our lawns. So yeah, I mean, probably it is majority. Yeah, it probably is mostly contaminated now that I think about it. We've gotten better about farming practices in general. There's a lot less tilling going on, and we're not over farming like we used to back in the cotton days here. This property actually used to be farmed for cotton, and they completely destroyed the soil. And that's why a lot of our rivers are in trouble because of the erosion over the years. But I would say there's a lot of improvement that can still be done for sure.
Are we on a path of improvement as a nation, or are we on a decline?
Honestly, I think we're on a path of improvement because I think people are waking up to some of these agricultural practices. Now there's a lot of people that fight against it. So it's just hard to say. I mean, it becomes political sometimes, which is ridiculous. But I feel pretty optimistic about it. Even the farms that are conventionally growing and aren't growing organically, they're kind of stopping. They're doing more some of the no-till stuff, which is helping with the soil health. So I think we're kind of going in the right direction, and I hope we continue to improve. But I'm pretty optimistic about it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
I'm optimistic in general, but it would be easy to be pessimistic.
It would be, especially you listen, a lot of stuff on the news is negative, but I think people are waking up to it and are paying more attention to where they're buying their food and making sure that does have organic label on it, or if they're buying it local, which is the best way to go. But I think people are just kind of waking up to all that and the way that agriculture has been for the last 100 years here in this country, and it's I think it's getting better. So,
good.
Yeah.
Why is it important to buy local?
Besides the fact that you get your food much fresher when you buy local, biggest thing is you're buying from your local community, and the money's just going right back injecting back into your community, instead of buying it from a grocery store that's come from who knows where. You're keeping that money local, and you're helping a local business, and you're helping your local schools, and people have families, and they're paying taxes in the local community. So I think just kind of keeping all that local is really important.
I know it's important to buy honey as local as you can for the anti-allergenic effects.
Yep.
Are there benefits to buying local produce as far as health?
Not that I know of. I mean, not that I really know of. I mean, there's, as far as the honey goes, like you talked about, the bees are feeding on flowers that are in your area, so that's what's causing your allergies. So if you're eating the honey and all that kind of stuff. But as far as buying the produce on that aspect, I'm not really sure. It would be more geared towards it's just fresher when you buy it local, and it's a lot less time between the time it's harvested and we can talk more about that in the time you actually get it to your house and you're preparing it. So yeah, that would be more of the answer of why it's important to buy local as far as produce goes. Yeah.
I like that. I know you. I know where my produce is coming from, and now I've been
you're
to
out
the
here.
farm.
Yeah.
I can't wait to bring my kids out here.
Absolutely.
This is a funny story, but I've got a family friend, Bobby. Hey, Bobby, I know you're watching this. He's a truck driver, and he does not like farmers markets. He says that he has had a truckload of produce, and it gets rejected by the grocery store. And where does it go? It goes to the farmer's market, and they unload. I don't think he's talking about a little farmer's market like Suwannee, but maybe like Buford, like the larger farmer's markets. And he says, I'll unload it there. And he's like, organics, all, nonsense. Well, if he's been here, it's obvious. This is, I know where my food is coming from, what I'm feeding my family. Yeah. And that's important to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you're talking about the Buford farmers, a lot of these smaller farmers market, like the one you go to, Suwannee, that we attend, it's a producer-only market, and so they would be breaking the rules of the market if they were selling something that wasn't theirs, that they didn't grow locally. And they also have I think it's either a 50 or 100 mile radius that the farm has to be in of the market. And most of those farmers markets around Atlanta, the smaller ones, are producer-only. What he's probably talking about is the Buford Highway Farmers Market, like you said, or the Cobb County Farmers Market. That are these huge markets, and you can see there's pretty bad quality in some of those markets. You can find cool stuff there, but a lot of times the quality is pretty low.
Are the yields on an organic farm lower than on these massive farms?
On average, yeah, for sure, because not using your chemical fertilizers, you have to really know what's in your soil, and you do still have to add to your soil. You got to add organic matter, but you also have to add nitrogen, whether it be manure-based or plant-based. You have to have nutrients in the soil for the plants to grow, and if you don't get that right, you're not throwing 10-10-10 down, which makes it real easy. If you don't get that right, the plants, don't yield as high. The other thing is the pests. We do use organic pesticides. They're not synthetic, so they don't last in the environment. So a lot of it does work kind of good, but not great. So we got bugs everywhere. Right. Just the nature of it. So there is times where you have a pest that gets out of control, and you can lose a lot of yields that way. So I think on average, the yields are lower, but if you do it right, and I think people are getting better at it, I think that we're getting to the point. I know for a fact that our yields aren't any lower than a conventional farm. We've gotten really good at it, and you can see by some of the plants they're really healthy, and we've gotten some high yields off of them. So I think we're on the right path, and I think people are getting better at organic farming and increasing their yields compared to the conventional.
How long has this farm been here?
My parents bought this in I think it was 93 or 94. It had just got hit by a tornado. Completely leveled everything, well, except for the trees you see. Skipped the house somehow, jumped the house. But it cleared the land. But when they bought it, they got a good price on it because it looked like a nuke went off on it. There was just trees that were cut off at the 10 feet up. And so it took a lot to clean it up. And so they started gardening on it within the first 2 or 3 years. So I think we've probably been farming, I would say we've been farming it for probably about 15 years or so, where we're actually selling the stuff off of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is humus?
So humus is basically just organic matter. You can walk into the woods and kind of pull up a handful of leaves, and you see up under it, it's just a lot of broke down organic matter, leaves, wood, whatever. There's a ton of stuff, and there's also a lot of fungi and bacteria in that, good bacteria. And you can smell it, you have that humus smell. But that's something we have to, and technically the compost we use is humus as well. That's something we have to have in our soil. You need a lot of organic matter, and you want those microbes, because the microbes have to have that organic matter in the mycelium, the fungi, and that helps the plants grow. It helps their water retention. It helps a lot of things. And that's basically what humus is. Yeah.
Should I wash my produce?
I think we're supposed to tell you yes, but like I said, we don't use any chemicals.
Yeah.
We're real careful when we're harvesting. We have rubber gloves on. We wash most of everything. I mean, greens get washed. All our salad, green, lettuces, arugulas, kales, all that stuff gets washed here pretty thoroughly. But it wouldn't hurt you to eat it, to be honest with you. Without washing it, it wouldn't hurt you. You might get a little bit, a little dirt's good for you. Having it in there helps with the gut biome.
It's important.
Yeah.
I don't wash my produce that I get from you. I do get some produce from the grocery store.
That's what I was gonna say.
And I wash the snot out of that.
Like if you buy an apple from the grocery store, they hose that stuff down with pesticides. So you really want to try to wash it off as best you can. And like I said, those pesticides last a very long time, and they're packing it in trucks, and even though it's 6 months old by the time they sometimes get to the grocery store, especially things like apples and stuff that last a long time. Maybe not that, I might have been exaggerating, but at least a couple months. It may still be on the fruit.
Wow.
Those chemicals, so you really need to wash those.
I've heard the potatoes that McDonald's uses are very special potatoes, and they have to be put in a barn and locked up for weeks or months, and nobody can go in there because they're so toxic.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
But they make beautiful potatoes,
yeah,
and they're not as tasty as they were when I was a kid.
Yeah, and they last a long time. That's one of the big things. They've probably developed a certain variety that just lasts for probably a couple years, to be honest with you. But it sacrifices flavor and health in general when you do that. There's nutrients aren't there. So,
how did you get into farming? Did you always want to be a farmer?
No, not really. I mean, I've always been into gardening. We grew up gardening here, and even before my parents bought this. But I went to school for forestry. It was a wildlife major, so I wanted to work for the Forest Service, the DNR, working with the wildlife agencies. But I was working at the research greenhouses at UGA, and during college, the whole 5 years I was there. And I really fell in love with that stuff, seeing how everything was growing. And I got out of school at a time when there wasn't any jobs in the wildlife. The state agencies and the federal agencies, there was no jobs. They were taking people that had masters and PhDs. And so I went to work for a pest control company, believe it or not, and got into sales with pest control companies. And I kind of saw the ugly side of pesticides and things like that. And we can unpack that, but in the meantime, I'm helping my parents kind of develop this farm, and they wanted to start selling the produce, and I was helping them on weekends, things like that, and just kind of fell in love with it. And I helped them grow. We put more growing beds out, and I got some wholesale accounts. We got connected with Fresh Harvest in Atlanta, which is a really awesome company. But we just kind of expanded the business. And I kind of hated where I was at, working in that pest industry, trying to do sales. And I think we got something here. And so I just kind of quit and took a leap of faith, and didn't make a lot of money first 3-4 years we were out here, but we grew it to a point where I'm able to make a living. So
nice.
It's been good. Yeah.
And you're supporting other people. I
Yeah,
guess they're not out there now. There must be. Oh yeah, there's one guy out there. But
yeah, that's actually my dad out there. He's out there getting sweaty. But
nice.
Yeah, so we've got employees, and we were able to pay them pretty good, and
nice.
So we've been able to. You got to find people that are okay working out in the heat, which is hard to find. But we have a good crew right now, so we're happy with them.
I bought some tomato plants from you early this season, and some pepper plants. It was Big Beef and Tasmanian something.
Tasmanian chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those tomatoes are so good.
Yeah.
Why do the tomatoes that I grow taste so much better than anything else I buy?
One of the biggest things is you're getting it right off the plant. And when you pick a fruit, especially we can go into greens and stuff like that, when you pick a fruit like a tomato.
Did you just say tomatoes are fruit?
It is a fruit, yeah. Peppers are a fruit. Eggplant's a fruit. If it's got seeds, it's a fruit.
Squash?
Squash is a fruit. Yep.
You're just blowing a lot of
Yeah,
minds
zucchini,
right now.
all that stuff. If it's a fruit, you know, it's technically a fruit. Now,
If it
some
has
people,
a seed, it's a fruit.
if it has seeds, it's a fruit. Yep.
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin's a fruit. Yep. Pumpkin. Well, besides like peas and beans, they technically have seeds, but they're a legume. But
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, if it got a flower that forms into a fruit, then it is it's technically a fruit. Now, I think it's been classified more things that are sweet, you know, that have sugar content when people think of a fruit. But tomatoes definitely fruit. So, anyway, so yeah, if you pick that, you're picking that, you know, it immediately starts losing nutrients. And so if you go pack it into a truck, ship across the country, you know, gets in the grocery store 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it's lost a lot of nutrients, and that's a lot of the flavor. And so that's one of the biggest things. You're picking it and going right to the table with it, and there's nothing better than that. The closest thing to that is buying local, you know, buying from a farmer's market from somebody that just harvested it, but even then it's still been 24 hours or longer. So it's always going to taste better when you grow it. And I think it's a mental thing because you're proud of it, and you're, you know, and that goes a lot into it as well.
I like it that my kids get involved and they go out there. We just watered the tomatoes and peppers this morning, and they love it. They want to pick the fruit. I've not allowed them to do that yet because they're destructive, and they'll just pull the whole
Wait till they get a little older.
But what can people who are homeowners, you know, city dwellers do? What can we grow ourselves that's easy and doable?
There's actually a lot you can do. I mean, the sky's the limit, really. If you have a patio that's got some, you know, decent sunlight, or better yet, you know, a little yard or whatever you've got, you can get pots. You know, you want a larger pot is better, but you can grow tomatoes, peppers, like you do. There's eggplant. We grow an eggplant variety. They're these little baby eggplant, delicious, but they're called patio baby. And they don't get the plants don't get real big, but they put a ton of fruit out. Again, fruit, eggplant's a fruit. But things like that. But then aside from that, you can plant lettuces. You know, they have I've seen the tower gardens that go, you know, you use the vertical space instead of horizontal. And so you can grow, you know, lots of lettuces. You can start them from seed. You can buy the transplants. I mean, every garden center has them. But kale, collards, I mean, anything we grow out here, I can't think of. Maybe okra would be one of the few things that you can't really grow because it needs a lot of space and it gets big, and it likes to have. I don't think it likes to grow in a pot. There's probably some other things I'm not thinking of that might not grow well in a pot or in a patio. But the biggest thing is just making sure your soil, whatever container or whatever little garden space you have, you just want to make sure you have good soil in it. That's so key. People ask me all the time. They'll show me pictures of a plant that's not doing well, and I ask them, well, what'd you put in the soil? Well, we just put potting soil from Home Depot in, which has no nutrients.
What about specific tomato soil from Home Depot?
That I don't know a whole lot about. It's probably got chemical fertilizers in it, which in the end of the world, I mean, if you're not, you know, it's pesticides are more the really bad thing. But of course, I don't promote chemical fertilizers, but if you have to, that's fine. But I see Home Depot's got a lot of organic soil now, and one of the best things you can do is just get some of the organic soil, whatever they have, potting soil, mix it with some of your own dirt that's in your backyard, 50-50, and then put some black cow or black hen is the brand name, I think, but it's just cow manure or chicken manure that's been composted. Okay. Mix that in, that's your nitrogen, boom, that's all you need.
So you got 50-50 soil, local from my yard, and organic from the big box stores.
Pikes.
And then how much manure?
Manure, it'll say on the bag. I mean, it's not, you can't with the manure compost, you can't really burn anything up, so you're not going to put too much, but you can throw, depending on how much I mean, it'll say on the bag, but for a pot, you know, half a bag or something in there would be plenty. But that's the easiest way to go. And we love, our best customers are people that grow plants, they grow vegetables, which is counterintuitive. You think, well, you don't want them to grow it, you want them to buy it from you, but that's not the way it works. People grow it and they realize how hard it is, and they get a taste for that fresh produce, and they're going to be much better customers that way. So, yeah.
You mentioned you didn't like, obviously, selling pesticides,
right,
and probably working in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
You seem like a really happy guy.
Yeah.
Would you say that being outside, working in the soil, working with your hands, what are the benefits of that, just personally?
Just personally, I mean, I always loved working outside. I remember trying to think of careers to do, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to go into the wildlife agency, where I can be outside most of the time. But yeah, getting in the soil, I mean, while we're harvesting stuff, I'm grabbing a potato right out of the dirt, eating it. I know I have good gut biome, and the sunlight, we get so much sunlight, too much sometimes, but I've gotten good about protecting myself from that so we can avoid some skin cancer. But getting all that vitamin D from the sun, my immune system's been really good, especially all through this, the pandemic and everything. We've everybody that's worked out here has had a pretty good run of not getting sick, and I think a lot of it has to do with soaking in that sunlight. And probably a lot to do with us eating straight from the field, but just being outside, and it's just great for you. It's just great for everything. Your energy from day to day. It just feels really nice. You're not stuck in an office with fluorescent lighting. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's huge, and I can't see myself ever going back to being inside most of the time. So I love it.
You mentioned gut biome. That's I hear a lot about that all the time, and I've heard that eating a little bit of dirt, or picking a carrot and it's got a little dirt in the creases, and that's good for you. How do you know if you have a good gut biome?
I'm not really sure. I know you can get it tested, most likely. I don't know a whole lot about that, but I do know that I've seen research articles about they linked a lot of people that had the severe COVID cases with a bad gut biome, because you're taking antibiotics a lot for whatever, and it's killing all the good stuff with the bad stuff. And like I said, if people are eating a lot of conventional produce, or they're eating a lot of GMO wheat, which is in every cereal, whatever, just about everything's got high fructose corn syrup in it, which is GMO, and so you're getting a lot of the little bits of glyphosate and things like that in there that's killing off your, and I'm not a scientist, so don't take me at my word on that, but just from what I understand, that can actually affect your gut biome. And so I think, if you're getting sick a lot, or if you're having a lot of problems with, digestive issues, that probably means you got something going on there that's you're missing something in your gut, because you want all that bacteria in there, So
I heard recently our bodies are made up of 10 trillion cells, and in the gut biome there's somewhere between 10 and 30 trillion cells that are not part of us, but they affect the brain. They sort of are a brain. They're their own system. So we're not a majority human.
No, that's kind of a crazy thought, but it doesn't surprise me too much, because, and I think that's a whole new discovery, pretty recent discovery about all that stuff with the gut biome and the good bacteria, and I think they've only really scratched the surface on it of stuff we know. And then not to get too graphic, but I've heard people talk about doing the fecal transplants and things like that. When they have a really bad gut biome, they actually find somebody with a good gut biome and kind of do a transplant, which is crazy to think about, but it's supposed to be working pretty well for people. So
in fact, I was listening to something earlier this week, and they were talking about probiotics. And people spend big money on probiotics. And this was a scientist who said you're wasting your money, because you're putting in maybe a billion cells, but there's 10 to 30 trillion cells inside, so it's just
not even a drop in the.
It doesn't even affect it at all. But the fecal transplants are something that can seriously
starting to work.
help you. Okay, Matt. Plants are obviously alive. Soil, maybe not so obvious, but it is alive. The microbes, the microorganisms. Do you talk to your plants?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes when they need a pep talk, I will.
Are they good listeners?
I think so, yeah. They're much better listeners than people are, I can tell you that. But I don't think I've seen a direct effect from me talking to them, but it makes me feel better.
My oldest daughter used to love this TV show. Oh gosh, what was it called? I can't remember. But this girl would sing to her plants, and when she would sing, they would grow.
Is that right?
That's
wild.
Neat.
I know that they plants will put off they actually put off electrical signals, and I saw the other day they created this this product that you put it next to your house plant, and it actually picks up the electrical signals and will play like a song. It's incredible. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it kind of has this really pretty kind of little sound to it that is picking up the electrical signals from the plant, supposedly. I'm maybe a little skeptical, but I don't see why it's not. I mean, they definitely put off electrical signals, so plants I think people don't give them enough credit, to be honest with you. They're pretty incredible and complex.
Yeah. The Dirty Dozen, the Clean 15.
Mm-hmm.
What should we be sort of staying away from, or just washing? If we don't buy local, or I don't know whether we do or we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Are there certain plants that we have to be especially careful with, and some that we can eat no matter what?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not super versed on the actual list of those, but I do know that there's certain things that require more pesticide application. For example, fruit, like I was talking about apples for one of the things. I'm assuming that's in the Dirty Dozen, but we have apple trees here, but we can't sell the first apple because there's a worm in every apple, and you can't sell them. Nobody wants to buy an apple that's got a worm in it. And the reason is because you have to, even our organic pesticides that we're able to use don't work. So you really have to hose those things down with pesticide, unfortunately, and fungicide too, because we have so much fungal diseases for the fruit trees here. And so things like that, and then like you talked about potatoes, they're picking up a lot of the chemical fertilizers in the soil because they're heavily fertilized. The conventionally grown potatoes are. Pretty much any of the fruits, I mean, again, the fruits, but tomatoes and peppers and all that stuff, they're really susceptible to pest damage, and so they get a lot of pesticide applications. And then you talk about more of the GMO stuff, like the wheat and the grains, corn, that are getting doused with a lot of herbicide and also pesticide. That's a lot of stuff that you should steer clear of. And a lot of it, you can't really wash grain, so it's there. So you really want to just kind of look for that non-GMO or organic, which is even better, stamp on there, so that you're not getting a lot of the synthetic stuff. So that's pretty much it. And I know like berries don't require a lot of probably get a lot of chemical fertilizers, but I don't think they get a lot of pesticides because because they come in so fast. They're not too terribly problematic with pests. Some of them there's a lot of berries, but that's probably something, and I could be wrong, that might be in the Dirty Dozen too, but I think following those lists would probably be, I think, pretty good. So,
or just buy local, buy from Fry Farm.
Yeah, that works too.
You don't have to worry about it.
Exactly, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Matt, I started this channel because it's been not quite 4 years ago. I really got into health and fitness, and just made a huge change. And this is going to be episode, 8 or 9, and the previous ones have been about fitness. But I think fitness probably makes up 10 or 20% of the importance of physical health.
Right.
And nutrition is 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
Maybe we spend 30 minutes or an hour a day being active, working out, but most people spend 4, 5, 6 hours eating.
Right. Yeah.
and then they go shopping, and just diet and nutrition make up so much of being healthy. And you know, I just feel like buying local, eating vegetables, eating clean fruits and vegetables are so important.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, you know, kind of don't like the idea of spending more money, because local organic stuff is on average more expensive. Although, when we can go into this, we were not as affected by inflation. We are a little bit, but not as bad as the big conventional growers are having to ship their stuff. They're really hitting it hard with inflation. So I've noticed the grocery store prices, some of them are higher than ours.
Wow.
Right now. And but anyways, a lot of people they'll buy the cheapest produce no matter what, which is weird, because they're not buying the cheapest shoes, they're not buying the cheapest clothes, not buying the cheapest car, but they'll buy the cheapest produce, and that's what you're putting into your body. And I think people need to kind of rethink that. And you know, we try to set our prices as affordable as possible, but it is more expensive for certain things, especially when you're growing organically, like we talked about. I mean, you're getting lower yields for the most part, and it's a lot more work. We're having to hand weed, we're having to hand harvest, you know, we're having to be really careful about the bugs and things like that. So there is more that goes into it. There's more inputs, but yeah. So I think that's important, like you said, to kind of focus on nutrition, more than some of the other things.
Yeah, you mentioned cars. If you only got to buy one car, how would you maintain that car?
Yeah,
you would
that's
put
true.
in the best fuel you could. You would do your tire changes. You would rotate those
Hit
tires.
It every 3,000 miles.
Yeah, you'd be doing your oil changes.
Yeah.
And you only get one body.
Yeah.
So you better put the best you can in that body.
Yeah.
If you want to live a long time, and not only, more important to me than living a long time is being healthy
and feeling good, day to day. Yeah.
Being able to move.
Yeah.
And since, you know, I'm a vegetarian, I do eat eggs, which I get from your farm. They're much tastier than what I get from the grocery store.
Yeah.
They're more expensive. I don't know how much more expensive, but you know, I think they're $7 a dozen right now.
$7 a dozen. I did notice that like we have pastured organic eggs, or I see them for, you know, if they're not on sale, they're $7.99 for some of them.
Yeah.
Now some of the, of course, the conventional, the chicken house eggs are still, you know, $4 bucks, but but yeah. So has a lot to do with our feed and stuff as far as cost goes, but we haven't had to go up. That's the same price. You probably can attest to that. There've been $7 for 5-6 years now, and we haven't had to go up. So
long time. Since I've been vegetarian, I've lost, I don't know, close to 40 pounds, and I probably put 15 back on of muscle.
Muscle, yeah.
Which is, you know, I've always heard you got to eat lean meat and, you know, high quality protein. I think I get high quality protein from your eggs. Yeah. From legumes, from from bread. I get my bread from a local baker there in Swanee, and no meat, and just I feel better.
Yeah.
And I'm healthier. I don't get, if I get sick, I got sick on Monday. Got a sore throat. I haven't been sleeping well. Yeah. And then it lasted about 3 hours, and I'm
knocked
better.
It right out. Yeah. That's great.
And I think a lot of it is that my gut biome, the fuel I'm putting in my body is cleaner. Yeah. And I'm able to just bounce back.
Yeah. More energy.
Big time.
Yeah, we have a lot of vegetarian customers, whether they be vegan or vegetarian, that still eat eggs, or even some of them eat fish, but I hear the same story. I haven't made the leap to that. I still eat meat, but we're really careful about where we're buying it, making sure that it's, you know, grass-fed and grown humanely. But yeah, I hear a lot the same story you just told me. I hear that we have a lot of huge percentage of our customers are either vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian, and they tell us the same thing. So yeah.
Matt, for our listeners in the North Georgia area, where can they find your produce?
Yeah, so you can find us. We're we're at two different farmers markets on Saturday. We're at Swanee Farmers Market and the Sandy Springs Farmers Market. And Swanee is from 8 to 12 on Saturdays. Sandy Springs is from 8:30 to 12. And they both have websites. You can find them online. We do have farm pickup here if you're close enough to come pick up. Typically it's Tuesday, but you can request different days and times. It's real easy. You just put in your order on our website and pick it up here. The other outlet we have is through Fresh Harvest, which is a really awesome company. If you haven't checked them out, I recommend checking them out, especially if you're not somebody that wants to get up on Saturday, go to the farmer's market. They're the next best thing. They're super locally minded. They just about everything they have in their boxes. They're kind of like a CSA box, but they have these baskets and they're customizable. But just about everything's local. I mean, they have all kinds of local products, not just produce, a ton of stuff, and you can add them to your basket. And they've been a huge supporter of our farm. They buy a ton of stuff from us. They give us a decent price for it. They're just really great people. I think Atlanta's super lucky to have them. It's kind of incredible. Talk to a lot of people in a lot of cities, and nobody's got something like Fresh Harvest. So check them out if you're not somebody that wants to come pick it out at the market. But you still want to buy local and get some fresh produce. And that's pretty much it. I mean, we have an online store you can buy, and you can select pickup, whether it be here or the farmer's market, and that way you can get full selection of all our products. And that way, if you want to come to the market at 11:45 before we close, you can still get what you want, and we'll have it set back and ready for you. And that's what Chris does. I'm not saying you get there late, but
sometimes.
But you know it's going to be there, and you don't have to worry about it, because a lot of stuff we sell out of quick, especially eggs. But all our high demand items get sold out pretty quick, so that's a way to get them without having to fight the crowd in the morning.
That's why I started ordering ahead of time.
Yeah.
I love farm fresh eggs. My dad grows eggs, and there's just nothing like the flavor of a farm fresh egg. It's just, I don't even want eggs from the grocery store anymore. And so I would get to the farmer's market, and more than half the time, by the time I get there, you're sold out. So I would start ordering them ahead of time, and you've got these boxes. You got a selection of a large box and a small box.
Yep.
And if I'm heavy on onions, I'll just shoot you a note and say, hey, can you switch out for tomatoes? And
happy to do it.
You guys are always so flexible and responsive.
Yeah.
But I think next time, or one time, maybe when the kids are not in school, I want to bring them out here.
Yeah, absolutely. We can go. We got a pond in the very back that got some fish, and if they like to do a little fishing, I don't know if they're into that kind of thing, but
they love fishing. They do that when they go to my dad's in Texas, and they go collect the eggs, and they'll fish, and
that's awesome.
And they love it.
Yeah, and they can do the same thing here. So yeah, absolutely, bring them out. We would love that.
Matt, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want people to know?
Yeah, there was one thing I was going to touch on. I forgot about it, but we were talking about some of the difference between organic and conventional. One of the things people don't know, and this is really, really new science with this stuff, so I don't know a lot of the details, but plants, when they are being fed on by a bug, seems like a bad thing, which it is for the plant. Plants actually release chemicals, phytonutrients is what they call them, and to try to ward off the bug. It changes kind of the flavor, makes it less palatable to the bug, but they're sending signals out and changing kind of their chemical composition when they're being fed on to try to fight the bugs. And that sounds kind of strange, but that actually, a lot of those phytonutrients are good for us. They're antioxidants. And so when you're eating something that's been babied, that hasn't had any problems, that's been coated with pesticide, you're not getting a lot of those phytonutrients. And so that's a lot of new research with this stuff. They don't really know a whole lot about it, but they do know that they are releasing certain compounds that can actually be really good for us.
Yeah.
So that's something that's coming down the pike that they're going to be kind of doing more research on. So that's really interesting.
I heard that, I think on Huberman Lab, podcast I really like. And since then, I've started going and buying the ugly vegetables and the ugly fruit.
Last
time I was at your place at the farmer's market, you gave me the last tomato that nobody wanted.
That's right, yeah.
I thought it was beautiful, but it was just bulbous, and it had some places in it that it had been eaten on, and
as long as you eat it quickly, it's
oh man, I had it that afternoon.
Yeah.
It was so tasty.
Yeah.
And I'm stronger now. I'm healthier now after eating it.
Absolutely.
I searched that stuff out now.
Yeah. And people don't think about that, but those, just because it whatever compound they put out to make it taste bad for the bug, it actually can make it taste good to us. So it's a really cool thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Matt, I really appreciate you taking time to
I appreciate it, Chris.
Yeah, educate us about organic farming and invite me out to your beautiful place here.
Absolutely.
Man, what a perfect day.
Absolutely. It turned out great.
Sit
Nice cool breeze coming through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is perfect. So
it's been great.
All right, Matt Fry, we're going to put links to the farm, to the website, everywhere you can buy Fry Farm produce. Matt, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, we're Saturday here at the farmer's market, and like it always happens, as soon as we were done filming, I thought of questions, you thought of topics.
Questions,
yeah, and so here we are at the booth, and I got some video of the whole market, which is really cool. It's a beautiful day today. One of the fascinating things that you talked about off air was microclimates. Tell me about the microclimates at your farm.
Yeah, so the way the property is set up is a long, narrow property, and so instead of just having one area that we're growing, we have several growing beds throughout the property, and it's also hilly, so some of the growing beds are down in a valley, some are up on top of a hill. Then we have some areas that are close to a wooded area that stay a little shadier, and so basically those areas, like down in the valley, it stays a little cooler. And so we think about that when we're planting stuff that needs to be a little cooler, we can plant there. It also stayed a little wetter down there, so you have to think about stuff that doesn't like wet feet, plants that don't need a lot of moisture. And then, the opposite, on top of the hill, it stays a little drier, but it's hotter, gets more sun, so things that really, really like the sun, that can't take shade, that's a good spot for it.
Okay.
And then the areas, that are close to the trees that have shade, you need something that has a little bit of shade tolerance.
Okay.
So it's really cool that we have that, because we're able to, it's almost like having 3 or 4 different farms, packed into one.
Yeah.
And there's just different climates. It's very small changes, small differences, but it's enough to make a difference.
Yeah. And you have a wide variety of produce.
Yeah.
One thing that we didn't get to see was the mushroom growing area.
Yeah.
How do you grow mushrooms?
We grow them on oak logs. We cut trees down. We also use sweet gum too. We cut trees down that like red oaks that we aren't using, that are not choice trees for acorn production for wildlife and stuff. But we'll cut them down, cut them up, and just we buy mushroom spawns from a company called North Mushrooms. Big company, they're real popular right now. But we get it's a sawdust spawn, so the spores are in the sawdust. We get that, we put it in between the slices of the tree logs, and that's how we grow them.
Okay.
There's more details involved in it, but it's pretty much that simple. But there's other ways you can do it. You can grow them indoors, in a mushroom house, or you can what they call a drill and fill method, where they take oak logs and drill holes, put the spawn in the holes, and then leave it out, and it grows mushrooms. And we do shiitake and oyster. We do some lion's mane. We also do some wine cap mushrooms, which we do that in actual wood chips that we get from tree service companies that bring wood chips to us. So that's basically it.
And they just need to stay dark and damp.
You need them dark we actually cover them with a black bag for about a month or two when we first put them in, and you uncover them. And that dark environment really makes that mycelium kind of take off and take over that log, and then depending on the varieties, somewhere 5 to 6 months later, you'll start getting mushrooms popping out. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I've learned to cook a lot from just talking to you, because I buy something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorites is the North Georgia candy roaster squash, and they can be this big, or they can be just huge.
Yeah, you can probably see them.
Yeah, over in the corner.
Yeah.
I had 2 this week, and I just picked up another one for next week, and I I think you told me, tell me if I'm wrong, but I just slice it open and scoop the seeds out. And depending if I want sweet or savory, I might put coconut oil, cinnamon and sugar. Or most of the time I do savory, and I do olive oil, salt, pepper, and garlic. And I might cook it at 350 for 45 minutes, or sometimes up to 90, depending on how big it is.
Right.
Does that pretty much work with anything?
That works for any of the winter squashes, like the acorns, any of our cooking pumpkins, like the moringa squash. Works for anything. You can also just, a lot of times I'll just cut like a section of it off, save the rest of it, and then peel it, cube it up, and just roast those little cubes. Toss it in oil, and again, you can do savory or sweet, but it's a great way to do any of the winter squashes as well. But yeah, roasting is a good way to do anything. I mean, eggplant, squash, summer squash. Roasting is always a good way, and it really retains the nutrients and the flavor as well when you roast.
Okay.
But it's also great for those candy roasters. It makes an excellent soup.
I have to get that recipe from you.
Yeah, you just cube it up and kind of stew it in some coconut milk, and it makes it really good. You do curries and things like that. So,
nice.
Yeah.
All right. You got a cute little farm dog.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Remi. Yeah.
Does he
Remington Steel.
Remington Steel.
Yeah.
Does he keep the pests away?
He does. Yeah, he does a good job. He's a Teddy Roosevelt Terrier, which is kind of an unknown breed, but it is a recognized breed. But it's basically a short-legged rat terrier, so he's small enough to get up under the plants and kind of chase the rats and chipmunks and things away. And he knows his duty. I mean, he's constantly going after stuff, chasing squirrels. He'll chase bigger stuff. I've seen him chase raccoons, foxes, unfortunately, which is kind of scary. But yeah, he does a great job keeping the critters away. He's a really cool little dog.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of critters and pests,
Yeah.
The tomatoes that I got from you, they got these little worms, these little horned worms.
Yeah.
And then there's also, on my peppers, there's these little tiny red spiders. I sent you a picture. How do you keep those off?
So those red spiders are not spiders. They're actually called leaf-footed bugs. Those are the nymphs. They look like little red spiders. They turn big and they look like kind of like a stink bug eventually. They're rough. We have them all over our peppers farm. They're just one of the best. They get on tomatoes. They're one of the biggest pests we have for nightshades, which are eggplant, tomatoes, peppers, amongst some other things. But, and then the tomato hornworms are pretty bad. They'll strip out your leaves.
Oh, they just stripped it almost almost empty.
So with caterpillars and worms, we actually have an organic product that we can use. It's called BT, and it's derived from it's a bacteria that's in the soil. I mean, it's everywhere, and they're able to extract that and use it, and you spray it on the plants. And it only works on caterpillars and worms, larvae, like the tomato hornworms. Spray it on there, and that works great.
Okay.
For the worms. Now for the leaf-footed bugs, there's not a whole lot you can do. We do have the Pyganic, which is an organic pyrethrin. Works okay. It doesn't work great, but there's no residual, so you have to hit the bug.
Okay.
You can spray that. It's a pretty good control method, but you're not going to wipe them all out.
Okay.
But it'll knock the numbers down, especially the little nymphs like you're seeing. If you hit them at that stage before they get big, before they start laying eggs, you're doing pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got one more serious question and then one fun question.
All right.
After we filmed the other day, you took me back and showed me your chickens.
Yeah.
And it's different from any chicken house I've ever seen.
Yeah.
How are your chickens different?
Well, the way we did it, kind of a weird way, we came up with this. We actually took one of our grow tunnels, which is basically an unheated greenhouse, and converted that into a chicken house. They're still getting sunshine, but they're protected from the hawks. And they're still free range. They're able to walk around in there. And there's a gate on the front of it. And every day we pull the tractor around. And any greens we have that are too buggy to sell, if you have any pumpkins that have worms in them, tomatoes, load it up in the tractor bucket, take it down there and dump it into the chicken house. And they feed on that. So every day they get fresh produce. We feed them a non-GMO, non-soy laying pellet, which is a much healthier version of the laying pellets that most people feed them. It's a little bit of an expensive feed, but we think it's worth it. And so they're really healthy birds, and they have really nice dark yolks because they're getting such a wide variety of diet. So yeah, that's pretty much the difference. And you can taste it, you can see it, and crack them open. I'm sure you can attest to that.
Oh man, there's just the best flavored eggs I've ever had.
Yeah.
Other than yours, Dad. You have good eggs too. All right. opening day of Georgia football
Oh
today.
man, go Dogs.
Yeah, you're Georgia alum.
Yeah.
Georgia, Oregon, big game
Yeah.
today. This is going to play.
They're playing Atlanta
next
Yeah.
week. So, do you have a prediction who's going to win?
I mean, I got to say Georgia's going to win. I can't imagine Oregon beating them, but I think we played them once when I don't know how long ago it was, but I think we're going to beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both ranked pretty high, so it's going to be a good game, but I just don't see us losing to Oregon.
I hope you're right.
Yeah,
Go
I
Dogs.
hope so too. Go Dogs.
Anything we didn't talk about you want to bring up?
Think of anything. We covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out to the market. So.
All right. Hey, thanks for watching. Well, we'll see by the time this comes out if Georgia was victorious.
That's right.
I hope you're right, Matt.
All right.
All right. Cool, man.
Yeah, awesome, man. I appreciate it.
It's kind of weird that I wish we were looking at that, but it makes sense for the audience to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna put links to where you can get his produce in the start over. Get 2 coffee cups. You seen that Alec Baldwin deal? He's on Saturday Night Live. Nope. It's 30 Rock. You ever watch 30 Rock?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know what to do with my hand. He's like, give me a coffee cup. Give me another coffee cup.
2 coffee cups.
All right.
All right.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Do you have a few minutes? Can I look in the back?
Yeah, we can actually jump on the cart and ride up there if you want.
Yeah.